Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Psychology and Spirituality, a Bridge to a Better Life discussion. I'm your host, Marcia Trajano, and with me today is our special guest, Leo Vieira. Leo came back today to continue our discussion from last week. And just to remind, if you have not been able to see that Leo is one of the co-founders and workers for the Spiritual Society of Baltimore, SNSB. He has done many different tasks and roles there, including study groups, mediumship meetings, and public talks. Like me, Leo has a formal education in business administration. And as I mentioned before, we laugh a lot every time we start talking about discussions from a spiritual component or a spiritual angle, because while we both have that spiritual perspective, we gravitate often, more often than not, toward a business language. So we're here today to talk about that. We last time we mentioned the concept of bringing a soul to our business. Today we're going to talk about how do we understand the business enterprise, the for-profit environments, their language, and how those processes seen from a spiritual lens can help us better understand. So with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to say this episode was also brought to you by our friends at SNSD, and are sponsored by AME Brasil, United States Spirits Federation, TV, Mansão do Caminho, and the International Spirits Council. Make sure, if you haven't done so yet, to subscribe. And I want to say, Leo, back to you. It's so good to have you with me and discuss this craziness that we call for profit corporate world, and how can we talk about spirituality and psychology in that context. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back again with all of you here. Welcoming all of those who will be watching this segment to understand a little bit about ourselves in the work environment and how the work environment plays out in our daily lives, right? In our ascension to become a better human being, right? In general, intellectually speaking, morally speaking, spiritually, and yes, spiritually, our work environment can benefit us very much so. In any case, I mean, I want to take us back to a joke that we were saying, as on an off basis, right? That we're workaholics, right? And I am one too that I like to say that, the other day, talking to my wife, she was kind of expressing herself about having to get up in the morning, go to work because there's something that was bothering her at work. And I said, I know I don't have that problem. I get up in the morning. I love the idea to have a clean slate, a clean sheet to, make a difference, do something, right? And she looked at me like, what are you talking about? Well, mainly it's because Spiritism helps us change this concept of what work is. I have to say, I have no other explanation to this than when we go back to the Spirit's book and we see and we are reminded that work is every useful occupation that we can perform. Even I'll joke about it, cleaning our teeth, right? This is the answer, by the way, of question 657 or 675 of the Spirit's book. But we're going to go back to it real quick. But before we go on and we dive into the most important part of this, I just want to give a highlight of this segment, right? Or of the previous segment, excuse me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's important, right? And I ask you to please watch it, and you can actually see on the bottom of our video there the link for the previous one. But definitely look into it and watch it so you can make a better understand better what we're going to talk about here today. But this is actually a discussion around chapter 12 of the book Liberation Through Love by Joanna de Angelis, where she entitled Businesses. But we're going to change a little bit here, and we're going to go into the idea of organizations. The idea of organization mainly is because everything is an organization, not only the business that we work for, but the business that we go to buy, our vegetables, right? Our home is a business, right? How we function, how we deal with one another, right? What we buy, what is our product, what we offer other people when they come to our home, right? Our guests, and so on and so forth. In terms, if we really dive into this idea of organization, is any time we're exchanging goods, right? It's not only physical goods, but anything that we exchange, we become organizations dealing with one another. That's why we would like to take this perspective and change a little bit here. But what did we talk about it? Joanna de Angelis dives into this explanation that there are vicious organizations out there, right? They're very, unfortunately, they're not treating their employees well. They're not. Some organizations, they're working us to death. We are working ourselves to death, right? It's beyond the idea of being a workaholic to serve, but to really finding ourselves in a very detrimental condition later on in life, that we're like, wait a minute, I worked so much, I made a lot of money, I reached my goals, but now I don't have a way to really, live the life that I worked for, right? And we go back and we spend all the money that we made to rehabilitate ourselves physically, right? And there's more to it as well. That these organizations, they're a structure that they didn't just come about out of nothing. They were a result of how we collectively are working with one another, or presenting ourselves at work, as well as in our daily lives, right? When we, in terms of what I need from society, what I request from society, my needs, my wants, and guess what? I create a market. And if there is a demand, right, there will be hopefully a group of people in any type of product that will supply our needs, right? Supply and demand. And it creates this vicious cycle, right? And then she comes with the idea of Jesus, on how Jesus brings to us, and what is Jesus' organization, right? In terms of being compassionate, being kind to one another, to help one another, right? Instead of really this idea of organizations, very detrimental idea of organization that we carry with ourselves. That is just a highlight, very simple highlight. Please watch the last segment, because I think it will make more sense to you as we're going to dive into it to work today. But Marcia, I want to just go back to what I presented earlier, right? In terms of that question, I wanted to dive in a little bit more as we also finalize the other segment in terms of our responsibility in the work environment. What are we doing, right? And this question of the Spirit's book, question 675, asks the following: should we understand by labor only material occupations? And the answer is no. The Spirit labors as does the body. Every useful occupation is labor. Why am I bringing this to life back again? Because once we change that concept, it will enable me to see myself differently, and consequently, as we were speaking on the other segment, the last segment, see my neighbor, right, as someone who just want to be treated just as I am, right? The golden
Mhm.
rule, right? Love our God, treat our brother, one another as we're treating ourselves, right? Again, I wanted to bring this so that we can start this in this segment as changing this idea about ourselves, and also understanding, right, with Spiritism, what Joanna de Angelis is talking about, in terms of why me? Why do I have to go through of the things that I'm going through at work? Not that we were preoccupied with the pencil that doesn't write well, or the pen that doesn't write well, or the chair that I sit. Yeah, that sometimes really creates some difficult moments there. But it's the individual. We don't get mad at the color of the walls, right? We get mad at the situations that we go through with one another. So why you? Why me? Why this person? Why do I have to deal with this person? Why am I in a position right now that I'm going through these difficult moments? That's what I would like to pose to one another first, because I'm pretty sure you have that inside of you. Every now and then when you're driving to work, it's like, why me? Right? And it makes our days much more difficult, right? So this is the idea. I don't know if you have, before I continue, I would like to pass it over to you if you would like to add anything, but I'll give you more insight on that just so we can simmer a little bit on this question, right? Why me, right?
Yes, love it. Love the idea because implicit in the why me is the idea of victimization, right? Of what it can even be called predatory practices that we can talk about when we talk about organizations, that the competitive or highly competitive nature of within being part of an organization, but also organizations with other organizations. The words that come to my mind, Leo, as you're going to be talking um, about the law labor is RACI, KPI, mission, vision, benefit realization, project life cycle, so on and so forth. Those are the words that when we bring into spiritism, they have a place to talk about it. But before we translate that into this discussion on spirituality, let's go, you know, do this deep dive, and then we wrap up with how can we think of those terms from a spiritual perspective. So please take it away.
Very well, thank you. Yes, it can be daunting, right? It can be very hard when we are looking at goals, when we're looking at ourselves, how we fit in, right? How we know I on the last segment as well, one of the things that we mentioned is the idea of customer relationship management, right? And
Mhm,
how do I what is the product? Sometimes we don't even know what is the mission, the vision, let alone
mhm,
the
mhm,
values of the company that we work for, especially if we're working for a smaller institution, organization. They don't have a set, vision, right? They just work to give a product. So we can go off of the product. If anything, if we can always ask, and very easily we can identify what is the product that this company really produces, or the service being the product as well. And then we look at ourselves, what is the product that I can offer this company, because it's an exchange. You are
mhm,
employed to provide your labor, and you get a salary out of it. But it's beyond that. It's beyond the salary, right? And we find ourselves in this, in this position, this situation, that sometimes it's like, wow, I'm going to work, but it's very hard, right? One thing that I would like to bring here as a foundation for all of us, and this is by no means to say that is a negative consequence, but it's an opportunity, and we're going to go back to this idea, an opportunity that God has given us to make amends with ourselves in our past. We are evolutionary beings. We are reincarnating, to since we are on a planet of expiation and trials, to make amends with ourselves. The things that perhaps we have done wrong in past lives, we are here now to say, here's another chance. Here's another day for each one of us to make a change, right? To redo things that were not done in the past, or redo things that were done but not so well. The idea of work is it's the same thing. It kind of go hands in hand with this, right? Perhaps we are working for an organization that is not doing well in terms of the culture of work that we live in, right? But if we take work, as we mentioned here, with a different eyes, right, making labor this every useful occupation or practice or act that we do, then
mhm,
things change, right? We're going to see in the Spirit's book as well, the third part of the Spirit's book, in the studying the law of labor, that there are individuals that they impose their authority, right, their power on us, to make a gain out of it, right, to make sure that the company, the institution is flourishing, as well as them, right. Their ego is overpowering everything else, right, and forgetting about the product, right. So what is happening, what could happen, let's not say that what will happen, what could happen to these individuals. Perhaps many of them, just like us, will have to reincarnate, or will be given an opportunity to make amends of that situation, right? That is the reason why everything that we have done in the past brings us to this very moment that we are right now. Yes, I'm saying this moment, you and I talking, and you're listening, and you're thinking, right? Your past has brought you to this moment of our lives. Much like Marcia is here with me, we have done whatever, right, Marcia, to get to this point. So there's nothing wrong with that. But how we take or change this approach, or how we accept this idea, is what is going to make the difference, right? In say, wow, this is a tough situation that I'm in right now, but I also have the power to make my recommendations, not through words sometimes, because sometimes
Mhm.
spoken words doesn't say much, but through examples, through good examples. As Marcia reminded us the last time, is that looking at my neighbor, right, the
Mhm.
person who's right next to me, as someone just like me, someone who
Mhm.
wants to be a good person, to grow in the company as well, to grow spiritually and intellectually, perhaps, if we can help that way as well. So that is the approach that I would like to kind of introduce to all of us, to rephrase ourselves. Maybe, yes, it is work, but this is the moment, this is an opportunity to grow spiritually. Because if I'm helping my neighbor to grow, guess what? Consequently, we're all growing together.
Mhm. This is awesome. So we are here back to the discussion, Leo, and thank you so much for bringing the notion that you find. And I just want to bring to those of you who do not know Allan Kardec and Spiritism, those two works that Leo brought to you. He referenced to are the Spirit's Book and the Gospel According to Spiritism. So it's important to understand that that body of work really lays a strong foundation for us in the sense, and this is very interesting, in the sense that we are indeed beings that are immortal, right, Leo? We are immortal. We, in from that perspective, as immortal, we don't die. We just cease to live in this corporeal body, and we'll have a life after this life, after this life, and after this life again, until the point that we're able to learn and construct that perfected spiritual being from a intellectual and moral being. So back to the beginning, work is indeed your place of work, and work for, I guess we could say capital W, the place of work, whatever that work may mean, is a place where we are growing, that we're exercising, and we're exercising intellectually, but we're here to say beyond that, you also exercise your notion of, as a gregarious being, as a social being that we are, we're also working other areas. What other areas are we talking about? Well, let's start with the fact that perhaps we need to look at ourselves and be able to touch upon all the sentiments. So beyond the doing, right, the beyond the learning, we can discuss the feeling, the area of emotions that are part of who we are. The moment we start to have a better conversation with all that we bring, we will, it's inevitable, we will confront the idea that there is a wedge, a separation,
Mhm.
right, between your ego and yourself and self. From Jungian psychology and Joanna de Angelis, self really represents your spiritual nature, that spirit that does not die because it's an individuated being. And the personality that is today associated with this set of experience that Marcia Trajano has in her X number of years on earth at this time. But as I grow apart, as I lose my sense of balance between self and ego, then I start to deal with the responsibility, right? And that's what we're talking about, the responsibility, the accountability to the things that we have done or failed to do. So as we put that into the work environment, and I'm really keen on working the language of business, Leo, because we started with mission vision, right? No matter how large the organization that you belong to is, it should have, even if it's not formally written, a mission. What are you doing with your time? What is the product that you brought? What is the product? It can be a service, it can be a process, it can be a actual tangible product. It doesn't matter. What is the product? What is the mission? And what is the vision on how you're going to get there? And the vision, to me, really speaks to the arena where ourselves as spiritual beings really have a way. Because how I am going to serve, you mentioned the CRM, as I'm going to answer that phone call of a person that I don't know who it is in another part of the world, but who is absolutely upset, angry. And those are good because those are in the emotional cauldron, if you will, of interpersonal relationship, right? And that person is just calling you names, and you're like, whoa, I'm just here to get my wages so I can go back home and really live life. But that in itself is truly a bridge for us to bring our superiority, and I'm using that word with care, right? In
Hmm.
terms of spiritual maturity, how I react to that person, whoever that person may be, who is upset, who is angry, who is using the vocabulary of Joanna de Angelis, who is sick psychologically speaking, that person is suffering from something. How do we open space to accept that and not be, from a contagious perspective, not be sick as well, but actually envelop, embrace that person with love, and that interaction becomes just a component of many other interactions that you, Mr. Miss spiritual being, can bring to your work environment. So I just wanted to know, I talked about mission and vision. What are the other language that we can talk here today, Leo? Maybe, yeah, go
Values,
ahead.
right? The
Yeah.
values that we, are in. As you were saying this, it begs me to question, our viewers or followers to say, what is your mission? What is your
Mm-hmm,
vision? What are
mm-hmm,
your values?
mm-hmm,
And quite frankly, I often ask myself the same, and I have to say, I have to change my mission a couple times. My vision is completely different than my vision was 10 years
mm-hmm,
ago, 5 years ago, right? We change.
mm-hmm,
And that is a great thing because organizations just like us, they also change because they are comprised of people just like you and I, right?
mm-hmm,
And our values also change because now we have a little bit more of maturity. Well, we have now a product that perhaps we are offering out there, we're putting out there that is not that we look at and say now it's much more refined than it used to be, and it's a great thing. So the evolution of these institutions, they're happening. Just the evolution is happening to us as spirits. No,
mm-hmm.
as something also that we touched base at the last time, that our planet is going through a transitional moment right now to become a better planet, right? Why? Because we're changing. So
Can
what
I
is
can I
your
go back? Sorry to before you
Sure.
hold your thought, but let's just bring back for those who are not familiar, in the lexicon of spiritism, we talk about, and this is purely academic, folks, but we talk about 5 levels of spiritual maturity, right? And those spiritual maturities are done at a personal level, but also as a collective level, as the world that spirits inhabit, in our case, Earth. And those are, I think you started talking about the primitive worlds, worlds of trials and expiations or trials and atonement,
Mhm.
the regeneration world, the happy worlds, and celestial worlds. And interesting enough, right, Leo, as Allan Kardec brought to us, um, mid 1800s, with a body of work that is just phenomenal for us to have access and to bring this understanding of our role in this world, be it at home, in your place of worship, in your areas that you go shopping or work, whatever that may be. It really tells us the long journey that we have to go through to get to, if I may, get to a Christ-like a plateau or a platform of understanding. But we're not there yet,
No.
but we have the teachings, right? They're here for
Right.
you, for me, for everybody. And those teachings can be really understood in a form that is quite accessible to us.
Right.
You mentioned before, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you, right? The
Mhm.
golden rule. Look at yourself, don't judge. And with many other of the so called moral laws found in Spiritism, we have the law of labor that we talked today, but also the law of progress.
Sure.
And in that law, we can stop, but we cannot go back. And
Correct.
that, everyone, this is news for you, maybe, but it is for me a sense of comfort. We are, yes, we are the best version of ourselves right now.
Right now. Very
So,
true.
right? So
So
when we
it's
look at
interesting.
it, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Right. It's interesting that you're bringing this because it dates back to what you're saying. That was the next part that I was going to bring. That a sense of responsibility. Right. When
Hmm.
we study this idea of our transformation, as we also go back to the Spirit's book on the second part of the Spirit's book, there, chapter one, that we're going to see the different levels of the hierarchy of spirits, right? When we see the third order starting with third order imperfect spirits, the second order good spirits, and the first order pure spirits, right? That are changing, we are changing. And because we live, we reincarnate as we are reincarnated now on planet Earth, which is a planet of trials and expiation, we're also going through this transformation to become or to allow ourselves to enter an era of regeneration, right? Why am I saying this? Because we're being called ourselves, our responsibility is calling us to say, now we need to be more humane. Now we need to be a better individual so that the organizations where we're working become also a better organization, not only for me, but also for others too. Not in detriment of others to become better, but to, looking collectively, holistically, in general, right? To say, look, we are here for everyone, but for that to happen, each one of us have to be responsible enough from with our acts on how we act before others right next to us. Before it, when I say next to us, is the internal customer that I like to utilize the word, right? Before we even think about our external customer, right? Because if I'm not treating that individual next to me well, guess what? My external customers, they will feel, right? If the CEO of organization, if we're in a managerial position or whatnot, if we don't treat our people well, they're not going to treat our customers well. It's a consequence of facts, and this is not something we can deny as much as we want to, but guess what? It's going to happen. And obviously, the organization will perish, right? The reason I was saying this is because there's this level of conscientiousness that is now knocking our door, right? Our hearts, our minds to say there's something different. And when we bring spiritism to this, along with, besides being the science that we study, along with the teachings of our Christ, right? Someone who brought us a different perspective of life in different arenas, right? Because he also had his product, he also had, you know, uh, we can look at, his ministry in terms of an organization, allowing others to flourish, right? Helping others, bring a different message, right? It begs us to say again, as we were saying before, what is our mission? What is,
Mhm.
our vision? What is our value? And we'll see that this changes, right? So to to implement this in our life, especially in our work life, is very difficult. It's extremely difficult, right? But we will see with Joanna de Angelis, back to Joanna de Angelis, that it is through these acts that we will be able to spiritualize, our work environment. How? As she says, reminding us that through Jesus' organization, right? The by law really puts forth the idea of the greatest will be the one who serves the most. And when we look at the cog of the wheel, right? When we look at the how the gears working together, the wheels are working together. If we're doing well, if we're connecting with others, we'll see fluidity, right? We see that things are running better. And you brought the example of somebody over the phone. Sometimes it's that neighbor, that person right who sits next to you in a cubic. Sometimes has some problem at home and they're bringing it to work, or vice versa, right? And we say, wait a minute, let's stop, let's spiritualize our situation here, right? To be that
Mhm.
humane, to be that individual who brings a difference to the work environment. To finalize this part, I want to just bring two concepts that sometimes we get all mixed up: is to be a good leader and to be a good manager.
Mhm.
Some people, they banish the idea of being a good manager, and I take a step back and say, wait a minute, let's take a look both sides here. A leader is someone that embraces this all, right? That look at the overall and serves and leads by example. But if we're just a leader, guess what? Things fall out of place. So I always like to also think about being a good manager. What is a good manager? Is everything in place? Are the numbers corresponding to our behaviors, right? Are we, certainly doing the basics that the company, the organization is asking us, to do? So we have to have this balance. And I also invite everyone to become this leader, to become this
Mhm.
manager. That I need to manage my life. I need to do the things that I have to do every single day, mechanically or not, whichever so that I can go on and also become a leader, right? So I always talk to my higher ups, my people, working with me, the people that I deal with it, that we have these two hats, right? To be that good leader, but also be that good manager that are managing things that through each work we will complement one another, right? Because if you're just a good leader and you want to satisfy everybody's wishes, guess what? I'm quite sure you're not going to be managing well. But I bring this idea because the invitation is to be this balance, right? And that is what Jesus brings to us with his teachings as well.
Awesome. I mentioned last time that next time we met, we would check on our KPIs, our key performance
Right.
indicators. So, how are you doing? How are you faring on ensuring those, perhaps those people that work for you are getting better opportunities, and you, if you see yourself in a position of strength, are protecting those who are in a position of weakness? Anything that you want to bring back to the audience here today?
It is a struggle, right? Because when we find ourselves in this opportunity to make a something better,
Mhm.
sometimes we either do um, we extrapolate, or sometimes we don't do anything because out of fear we just
Mhm.
freeze, right? So the best thing is to allow ourselves to be ourselves, right? To be that individual that literally tells others, look, I'm not perfect, don't think I'm
Yes.
perfect, even though we are individuals that may pose and may do things that are very out of the curve, if you will.
Mhm.
We tell others, look, I make mistakes, and I dare you to come and beg for a better version of me, right? And I
Mhm.
think that when you have that connection with others, it helps a lot. Secondly, what I would say is that really take yourself out of the equation. Look, try to change your perspective and say, how can I, really become a better individual? Look at, I would say I
Mhm.
have to look at Leo every time and say, huh, was this good? What are the consequences of this act? What are the consequences of promoting this person or not promoting this person? What are the consequences of my act, right? In
Mhm.
terms of doing what I'm saying or not doing what I'm saying. So it's a collective um, It's a collection of things that we have to analyze to say that I am my KPI is all green. This is it's not, and and it's also something that we talked about last time, right? Accept that we have set ourselves for failure in the past, right? So that
Mhm.
in the future we're a better version of ourselves, right? That we
Yes.
become a better individual. I think that is so enlightening in the work environment that it's like, wow, why I didn't think about this before. And there will be bumps in the road. There will be individuals who will test that. That is normal. That is just human nature. But the idea that we want to bring back here is, what are we also now taking Leo, Marcia, any of us out of the equation here and stepping back completely and saying, what am I demanding from the universe? Joanna,
Yes.
Joanna de Angelis says something really, three things here that I would like to bring. Respecting modernity, like the transformation that we are going through, yes, but allowing, as she says, the methods of behavior to undermine commitments to goodness is completely not right, right? So, am I the one who really, buys something every year or every other month, something new, a new version of the phone, a new version of a computer when the old one is still working, right? And I'm saying this because it's easily right in front of us, right? But there are other things as well. The consumerism that we live nowadays, right? It's demanding of others, right? It's creating this rat race, if we can call it that way, right? And I love, the transformation that we have embraced throughout the last 20, 30 years. It's amazing. I was talking to a family member that, who would have think that 20 years ago we would be doing this right now, right? We did
Yeah.
not. Now, so this is amazing. And the other thing that also she says is, this idea of accumulation, right? When we accumulate, right, things to thinking about the future, right? Working hard now so that in the future I don't have to work as hard and I'll have something saved up is one thing. But when we are hoarding, right, to
Mhm.
create, crime and death, on others, on even ourselves, is something detrimental to all of us. On that note, she says the following: let us do and work on the vineyard that Jesus reminded us to do, right? Where things are more compassionate, right? When we are really living a life that we're helping others. And with that, so we can finalize, because I wish we could extend this work in this, this discussion, is that we bring back the idea that the work environment, yes, helps us to grow intellectually, helps us to put in perspective, as well as to exercise the things that we learn in school, right? That we learn throughout our lives. But never forget that is also an opportunity for us to grow spiritually as well. Because quite often, as I said at the beginning, as a joke, we don't get upset that the chair is blue or this or that color, right? But we get upset with that individual. We get upset with that situation that involves people. And if we can overcome these things and become a better version of ourselves, organizations for sure they will flourish and they will be a much better place to work. And in the morning, when we're going to work, we're not going to be asking why me in a impositional way, but to say because I am empowered. God has given me
Yes.
this opportunity, right, Marcia?
Yes, love it, love it. So I think as we wrap up our conversation about bringing spirituality to the work environment and talking on how we can be champions of that movement, if you will, we discussed a little bit about the soulless, right? The soulless organization, or is it a soulful organization because of us? Exactly because of us. We talked a little bit about the hierarchy of worlds and how we're getting there. And because we're not there yet, we understand the fact that we may fail, and we should be compassionate with our own failures. We should be compassionate with those that fail, and even invite in our homes, in whatever community that you belong, or even your work environments, to allow for that failure with compassion. And I would close our conversation here today saying, Leo, that um, let us follow our model and guide, Jesus, when he, in the very famous moment where he washed the feet of his apostles in a gesture, very rich image of his servant leadership, right? Let us be that can represent true authentic servant leadership, so that as we serve the other, we grow and we allow the other to grow as well. But with that, I want to say thank you. Thank you so very much for being here.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to have you back, Leo, and to talk some more about this topic or other topics related to this one. With this, everyone, thank you for being here. And until next time.
Thank you.